Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking the final two episodes of Season 1 of Star Trek Discovery, The War Without, The War Within, and Will You Take My Hand? um, I have mixed feelings about these episodes, and generally speaking, they kind of really play into my sort of what mixed feelings that I'm walking away from with the end of this first season. My big criticism with these episodes are that the whole situation with Giorgio and to another extent the situation with Lorca basically takes what we came with at the beginning of the season, with the idea that we were really going to challenge some of the traditional ideas of Star Trek and present things in a more modern, more nuanced view. And I think that's really what they did a nice job with in the first season, particularly with Lorca. We really weren't sure what was going on with this guy, but he did seem like a very morally ambiguous person. And ultimately, the twist of him turning out to be Lorca from the Mirror Universe was interesting. It was certainly a shocker. But the way they go with that, with bringing in a Mirror Giorgio, and this whole situation with basically the Federation considering committing genocide against the Klingons, ultimately it sort of feels like they're, one, just reveling in Star Trek lore for the sake of reveling in Star Trek lore, and basically just sort of using the Mirror Universe people as kind of like, oh yeah, all this bad stuff that these guys did, well, if it wasn't for the Mirror Universe people, the Federation would never have done that. And yet we have seen that in many episodes across many series that the Federation, while generally good, is flawed. They are vulnerable to all the foibles and errors that human beings are prone to. Like one of my favorite episodes of Next Generation was the Drumhead, for example, where Worf basically gets caught up in a witch hunt. It all starts off seeming extremely reasonable, but by the time he realizes what's really happening, it's just gotten completely out of control. But it's easy to understand how a good person could get caught up in something so horrible without even kind of realizing just how bad things were until it was too late. And of course, there's like In the Pale Moonlight on Deep Space Nine, which is just an absolutely magnificent, magnificent story. But here, again, it just sort of feels like they're just saying, like, oh yeah, this is all the fault of the Mirror Universe people. Which, I mean, that's such an enormous cop-out. I mean, never mind the fact that, you know, Giorgio just continues to play Burnham forever until, like, Burnham ultimately ends up saying, like, wow, you're really not the Philippa I know. And basically, Giorgio, the Emperor, is like, well, yeah, duh, which is basically the reaction of the entire audience is like, Burnham, why in the name of God do you not realize this is an evil version of the person you knew? I mean, her continuing to cling to that just is ridiculous. I mean, yes, you could kind of see why she would do that a little bit at first, but you would think that the whole eating Kelpians thing would kind of put the kibosh on that. I mean, never mind the fact that Giorgio just can't help but basically try and act like a crazy evil psycho. She doesn't even make any sort of real effort to sort of try and realistically pass herself off as the universe, the Giorgio of the universe that she's from. Excuse me. And I mean, yeah, I mean that's really the biggest one. And then there's the whole thing. It's like, okay, we've got this whole situation where we basically have the Klingons at our mercy, so we're going to give this power to this crazy lady and let her more or less try and unite the Klingon Empire. I mean, like, why doesn't the Federation just say, like, okay, if you guys don't give up now, we're going to destroy your homeworld? You know, that would bring an end to the war PDQ and would think earn the Klingons' respect. I can only assume the Federation didn't want to say, like, want to do the whole, like, do what we say or we'll commit genocide card, because that would basically be a complete undermining of their whole value system. But still, that's also not quite as bad as, actually committing genocide when they would have been shown to have committed this horrible act rather than just sort of threatening it. I mean, I suppose it's a fine line, but still. And then there's the whole situation where Ash basically says, like, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with the crazy Klingon lady, and I'm going to try and be a bridge between humans and Klingons. Even though having Ash stay on Discovery would have been far, far, far more interesting. And yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I was watching this episode and I'm kind of like, can we just end this already? I am just so disappointed with everything that's happened. I mean, there were some nice moments, like Tilly's line of like, okay, look, I know I'm really, really high right now, but you need to listen to me. Okay, that was funny. That was a cute moment. I liked that one. And also, Tilly showing that she actually seems to make a pretty convincing arms dealer. Also nicely done. But I mean, it's too little, too late. Some people were really like the whole situation with the Enterprise popping up at the end, like, oh, this is completely unnecessary. This was completely inevitable. This is absolutely no way, shape, or form. They were not going to do this eventually. I mean, the biggest question, you can't help but think, it's like, well, okay, where's the Enterprise? Where's Captain Pike? So the idea that they would never go and try and draw from this well, that's ridiculous. And setting it up as their hook for season 2, well, that's just basic marketing 101. So it's all really going to depend on how they play this. But yeah, it's clearly towards the end of the season they decided, like, it's like, okay, if people have stuck around this long, they're probably genuine long-term Star Trek fans, or they're people who are new to it but are willing to ride, go along with us on this ride. And even people who aren't really into Star Trek know about the Mirror Universe. Let's just go whole hog with the lore. And I ultimately wasn't too pleased with that. So ultimately, the season kind of comes across as a mixed bag. I mean, started off strong, had some really interesting ideas, but ultimately just decided to kind of go a much more conventional route and really, really, really took some lazy paths with the writing. I'm definitely still going to watch season 2, but it's definitely going to be with less enthusiasm than I had earlier this season. So with that said, guys, I'm going to call it here. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi. Please also join me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Until next time, take care and have a good one.